John, our guest this week is likely going to win National League Manager of the Year the way things are going in his first year as the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, and that's Pat Murphy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done a great job. They seem to be running away with it. Although when I was texting him and I congratulated him on getting the manager of the year, he told me not to do that. I'm too early. I shouldn't do that. But he's a guy with a good sense of humor, a fun guy, great quote, and he's normally heard by far fewer people in Milwaukee. Hopefully, be heard by some people in New York who are watching or listening to our podcast. But he's an interesting character and a very, very good manager.
Yeah, we'll go through all the stuff that is helping to make the Brewers one of the surprises in the sport this year. John, we're going to talk a lot about Aaron Judge, who deserves to have a lot spoken about him. He's having such a great year. We'll play hit and error at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, there's 30 teams, there's lots of players on every team, but it's pretty hard right now not to be talking about Aaron Judge. And let's see if I can make it about two people, but we'll obviously narrow down to Judge. I think we always think things were better. In some way, I think Ohtani and Judge are Ruth. Like they're playing the thing that differentiated Babe Ruth was he hit more homers than say whole other teams. He was doing
Right.
things nobody else could do. I think Ohtani and Judge have separated themselves. Ohtani might have a 50-50 season. Judge looks on the way to hitting over 60 for the second time, the only player who never tied to PEDs to do that. And look, there's a bunch of stats, but just as a way to show the separation, because I think we both have a great deal of respect for Juan Soto and the kind of season he's having. Juan Soto has a 1,035 OPS. Judge is at 1201. That's a 166-point difference, or the difference between second place and 13th place in that statistic is the difference between one
Right.
and two. John, it all feels Ruthian. Maybe not the whole career, though every time Judge is healthy and plays 140 plus
Right.
games, he is great. I just think he is separating himself. Him and Ohtani are separating themselves in a time where it's harder to hit a baseball than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. Ohtani's been compared to Ruth before, obviously with the
Yes.
pitching as well, but he's not pitching now. He's probably going to win the MVP as the first full-time DH to do so. You think the races are over? I kind of think it's like down to 2% or something that somebody else wins. Bobby Witt's having an amazing season. Francisco Lindor has been outstanding for the Mets, but at this point, I think things can change in late August and September. MVPs are won late in the year, but I think we're basically at 98% that Judge and Ohtani are going to win the MVP awards.
And think about what that does for their legacy. It would be two for Judge. It would be three for Ohtani. I think there's only 12 guys who ever done it three times, last by Mike Trout, his former teammate. Look, let's just skip back. Because I got to make a basketball analogy, John. In 04-05, Steve Nash beat out Shaquille O'Neal for the NBA MVP. And to me, that feels like the only way Lindor could beat out Ohtani. Like if you think of Shaq as a guy who played the two baskets, but not the whole court. He was kind of like a DH. He was the most dominant player in the sport, but to me, Lindor is like a great point guard. He's fifth in the National League in homers. He's seventh in the National League in steals, and he's the top rated shortstop by outs above average. He's kind of the all around player. And I think to your point, John, in that MVP race, the Dodgers trying to hold on to the NOS. If Ohtani is just great the rest of the way, helps him do that, I think it helps the narrative because the games are so meaningful. I think the same thing for Lindor. He's been great since mid-May. If he keeps going in this way, with Ketel Marte hurt and going to miss time with a sprained ankle, and with Ellie De La Cruz on now an all afterthought last place team in Cincinnati, I think Lindor is the only guy who could keep Ohtani from doing it. Does he continue to play like he has since mid-May and help get the Mets in the playoffs? I agree with you. It's probably less than 5% chance, but I think
Right.
that's the way in.
It's possible. It's a small chance. He's been an incredible all-around player, great since the beginning of May. Obviously, didn't get off to a great start, kind of like Judge in that regard. Judge had a 754 OPS through the end of April. Incredible that he's now at 1202. I don't see how Judge can lose. Bobby Witt Jr. has been amazing, and that's a great narrative too. They Royals won 56 games last year. They're en route to about 90 this year. They may actually they could win that division. It's tightening a bit. Minnesota's involved now with Cleveland. That division has become pretty good. Certainly look like they're going to get in the playoffs. It's a great story. So, I mean, it's not 100% over in either case, but it is all-time great seasons for Judge and Ohtani. And Judge now on pace for 63 home runs, going to break his own home run record if he keeps that pace going. And the pace that he's had since the beginning of May, it's even greater. If he keeps that pace going, he's probably in the high 60s. It's pretty amazing to see. Soto still leads the league. Explain that to me. How does Soto lead the league in walks, batting in front of Judge? I don't get these pitchers. Shouldn't Judge be the one leading? Judge is second in walks, but shouldn't Judge be the one leading the league in walks? And I mean, he now has Stanton behind him, so he's got a good threat behind him. But I mean, it's a little crazy that Soto's been able to walk 90? I don't know, 98 times, something like that. Why walk him? Got to pitch to him.
Yeah, I agree with you. It says a lot about Soto's abilities, right? That he has as good a hitting eye as you could have, because to your point, nobody wants to put a guy on in front of Judge. You want to have the option to put Judge on. And John, just on that big overall thing with Witt, who is a brilliant player. I wish the whole sport played like Bobby Witt, as hard as he does and as well as he does at everything. And Lindor, I was thinking about the MVP, and you know me as well as anybody in the business. I tend to overthink everything. And I said, you know what? This is probably one right this second. I'll do it again. Let's not overthink it. We might have a player have a 50-50 year. We might have a player hit 65 homers. Everyone else could have great years. Those are going to end up being the most valuable players in their sport. Their teams the Dodgers are very likely to finish first. The Yankees have a good shot, no less than 50-50 of finishing first. If you have those kind of seasons, those feel like the MVP is great. And by the way, Bobby Witt's great. Francisco Lindor is great. It's just like these other guys are historic, and they're just different from everybody else playing today.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a historic season, that certainly plays into it, I would say. Although there were folks arguing against Miguel Cabrera. Trout had a triple crown season, right? Yeah, and he won the Triple Crown. I mean, is it possible to have a historic season and not win? It's possible. That's why I'm giving it 2%. Bobby Witt Jr. has been the best defensive shortstop in that league, and great speed and power and high batting average, amazing, great narrative as well. But I mean, you hit 63 home runs or 65 or even 60. Let's say he cools off and hits 60 home runs. It's like a 1 out of 100 shot or 2 out of 100 shot, I think, at this point.
John, I think the other thing, we've mentioned Soto and Judge. It looks like Garrett Cole is beginning to round into a form a little more like Garrett Cole. We've wondered what this team would look like with its big three. Stanton has really been good since he came off the injured list. They're starting pitching. And, they can't separate themselves from the Orioles, who currently have 5 starting pitchers on the injured list. And it's a reminder, if you have Garrett and Ruth, if you have Soto and Judge and Cole, you better figure out at minimum how to win the division, if not the whole thing. The Yankees celebrated their 09 team over the weekend at Old Timers game. It's been 15 years since they've won even a league championship. I actually think if we were making a list of teams with the most pressure on them to do things, I would dare say, are they number one?
Yeah, probably the most pressure, but probably also at this moment, as we do this, the best chance. Now we've switched back and forth. The Phillies had probably had the best chance at some point. The Dodgers probably had the best chance at some point. Maybe the Orioles at some point. But right now, I mean, the Yankees are a bit top heavy. It's like the other Soto championship team, right? The Nationals, they were a top heavy team, right? They had Strasburg and Scherzer back when they were both stars. And they had Rendon when he was a star and not injured all the time. And they had Soto. So, I mean, they had 4, superstars, or if you don't think Rendon's a superstar, close to superstars. And you can win like that, right? I mean, the Nats ended up winning the World Series. They weren't probably the best team. They did it. The Yankees can win the World Series like this. I think their starting pitching is generally looking pretty good right now. Rodon is looking pretty good. Stroman's looking pretty good, and Cole's looking like Cole. Even if Heel doesn't go back into the rotation and becomes a reliever or whatever, I think they're probably the favorite. The Orioles, I give them credit at this point. I think, did I give them an error last time? I'm not sure if I did or not, but I mean, it's unfortunate to lose Bradish for the year. Grayson Rodriguez is still out. Now you've got Eflin's out. So 3 out of their 4 top starters are out. And it makes it difficult. And the Yankees should be able to win, right? Their payroll's probably double. And they don't have the injury issues that the Orioles have. And the Orioles are hanging in there. So give them credit. But right, most pressure on the Yankees, best chance Yankees right now. And 15 years, they celebrated that. I don't think should they be reminding the fans that it's been 15 years? I think that's a negative. I would put that on the error category.
Yeah, I think they just like to monetize things so they could afford guys like Soto in the offseason.
And what's
And
the point of the old timers? I mean, it should be a game, right? I mean,
yeah, no, I'm with you, John.
What's the point
I don't need
of
a
it?
Q&A.
No, Q&A, they're not, I mean, I understand A-Rod and Jeter are professional speakers now, but we don't need that. I'd like to see them get out there and play. I mean, it's nice to see how these guys can still play a little bit. I know they're not going full force, but I think it's interesting, and it's unfortunate they don't play anymore.
John, you mentioned the starting pitchers. One of the guys who's pitching really well right now is Nestor Cortez, also, who is a guy I would absolutely trust in a playoff game because I think he's a fearless guy. And if he's going well, I would use him. And they've got Clark Schmidt getting closer to coming back, maybe one more rehab, and he was pretty good beforehand. It might allow them to put Luis Gil, if Luis Gil gets healthy, into the bullpen and give them that strikeout guy they've been missing. And I like to draw out one other name here, John, just as a way to close the segment. For most of the time Anthony Rizzo was out, I was like, if Rizzo comes back, fine. But between LeMahieu and Ben Rice, they're getting pretty much zero production out of first base. If Rizzo could even come back and hit 7th, which is probably where he'd hit now with, the rise of Wells, Stanton healthy, Jazz Chisholm acquired, he might hit 7th or 8th. If he come back at league average and handle first base defensively, I actually think it's not Clark Schmidt who would help them more. But I do think it would really lengthen that lineup again and solidify the defense. I wonder where you are on that.
Yeah, I mean, the lineup is longer now. It was 2-man lineup for a little while, as our friend Luis Severino told us a long time ago. But certainly with Chisholm, that helps a lot. Wells is doing well, and you've certainly got Stanton back. So, and Glaber's doing okay right now as the leadoff guy. So it's pretty good right now. You'd bet, I'm with you. I think Rizzo should be 7th or 8th when he comes back, but I agree. It's an improvement right now. Rice will probably go down when it happens. I don't think they're going to cut LeMahieu. I think they'll keep him around as utility guy. But I'm with you. Would they do that, though? I mean, I remember what the brouhaha when A-Rod batting 8th. It's not A-Rod, but that's probably where he should be batting, and he is an improvement. But he probably don't. He probably bats behind Stanton, right?
John, as you mentioned, we probably shouldn't be the Yankees probably shouldn't be reminding anyone it's been 15 years since they even played in the World Series. Feelings go in the toilet here. You put your best team on the field and you line it up how you think you should.
I'm with you.
They've got the most pressure on them to win. Even the Dodgers spent over $1 billion in the offseason, but they could at least say they won that 2020 championship in the COVID year. The Yankees it's been a long time. I think they're number one. One of the teams that other clubs are going to have to get through and pass is the Milwaukee Brewers. They're a surprise this season, and they're doing it under their first-year manager, Pat Murphy, who joins us next on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John and I are so appreciative that Pat Murphy, the manager of the Brewers, is joining us on the show. And Pat, I know you're going to hate the setup, but I don't know that any organization has kind of bled more great talent over the last few years, right? You could argue Josh Hader's the best closer, and he's gone. Corbin Burns is one of the 5 best starting pitchers. He's gone. Craig Counsell, who you replaced and you were his bench coach, was considered one of the best. David Stearns was considered one of the best. And we're sitting here today, you're 75-15. You have the largest lead in the major leagues, 10 games of any division. And Pat, it's why I think people are talking about you for the National League Manager of the Year in your first year here. And I know you're not going to love that. So why don't I ask the question this way? Pat, why is a team that has had that, and by the way, no Devin Williams the first half of the season. By the time he comes back, it's no Christian Yelich in the second half of the season. Why have the Brewers stayed such a high-level team, even though it's taken as many hits as it has?
I mean, to answer that, I think it's one word. It's people. We lost all those people. We lost, some other ones. Brandon Woodruff. We lost Wade Miley. Those guys are at the core of this thing. But it's people. it's great people that come into a place with an expectation of, it's how you compete. It's how you go about your business, and that kind of culture is here. And yeah, thankfully these guys have competed their butts off, and it's worked.
Yeah, apparently, all the losses through injury and through trade. Is there anything? I mean, you start with a bottom third payroll to begin with, and then you lose all these guys. Is there any trick to keeping them going and keeping them focused and believing that they can do it despite all of these defections and losses?
Well, I think the fact that they're in the big leagues, John. I mean, they know they're good, and now it's getting the opportunity, maybe for the first time. I know that in our opening day roster, we had 13 guys at their first opening day out of 26. We had 6 out of 9 in the lineup, basically playing their first year, freshmen or rookies, as we call them. But, they're just excited. They're hungry. And I don't think there's a secret sauce. I think that you got hungry players that love competing, and everybody is looking for the big names. It's really not big names. It's guys that are just going pitch to pitch, staying in the present, and worried about the next game only.
I'm going to assume they have a hungry manager as well. Murph, you were an interim in 2015 after Bud Black was dismissed in San Diego, and Dave Roberts managed one game. And you were a bench coach for Craig Counsell for a long time. I won't give your age unless you want me to, but you're in your 60s, right? You're 65.
65.
And why'd you stay hungry? Why'd you still want to do this?
Yeah, I contemplated, what I wanted to do. I think it's the organization. I think it's the people. Craig set me up beautifully by giving me the opportunity to stand next to him. People thought I was going to mentor him, being his college coach, and being the guy that's been in that seat a lot. But he actually ended up helping me a lot more than I could ever help him. He taught me the major league game, and I'm still learning it. But it's I watched him very closely in how he did things, and really appreciative for that. So I stayed hungry. I guess that's just who I am. I don't know that I have the same energy I had at 20. Thank God I did. I don't. I wasn't very sharp or very, very smart, but it's just a matter of I love these players. I love to see them. My favorite thing is to see them realize they belong. See them realize, yeah, I'm a good major leaguer. See them realize their success. That's a super thrill for me.
Yeah, for people who don't know Pat's background, he's a longtime head coach at Notre Dame University, which is a great university. I know you grew up rooting for them as well. As you know, his name is Murphy, so of course he's a Notre Dame fan. And then you went to Arizona State, where you won a lot of games, a ton, and you had great players in both places. Obviously, we mentioned Counsell. I think you probably had Andre Ethier in Arizona, and Kinsler and Pedroia, probably. A lot of players. What's the overall? Now, those are obviously great major leaguers. What is the difference between coaching in college and managing at the major league level?
I think when you're a college coach, you're more of a mentor for their lives. You're more of a, they come in as 18-year-olds, on roller skates, as I used to say, like they don't really know which way to go and their footing isn't solid. And you kind of lay the groundwork of discipline, and, you let them know what your expectations are. You can easily impress them. In the big leagues, it's relationships. It's still love. It's still discipline, but it's relationships and helping them become aware how you're going to be successful. How do you get successful, bro? How do you package what you have, and how do you tweak and how do you make adjustments? It's not about answers as much as it is, relationship and prodding them in the direction of helping them realize how great they can be.
Pat, you mentioned Craig Counsell. He left to take the largest managing contract in history. And, he had a bit of a legend in Milwaukee. He's from there. He's the winningest manager in the history of the organization. But it felt like it wasn't the greatest divorce ever because he went to a rival so close. Your owner didn't seem to love that. Is there something to be said for outdoing them this season and still remaining at the top of this division the way it was when Counsell was the manager?
Joel, I don't think in terms of outdoing them any different than I look at outdoing the next team. I really don't. The Cubs are always going to be there. It's a great rival. Counts and I's relationship will never change. He'll always be a legend in Wisconsin because of what he overcame to become a major leaguer and to become a great major leaguer and then to become a manager and a great manager. And he loves this state. He follows it intensely. He did what he did, and it all happened very quickly. I was witness to it. But I don't look at my relationship with him is never going to change. It's a matter of our teams competing against each other. I'm not the Brewers. I'm a part of the Brewers. Counts isn't the Cubs. He's a part of the Cubs, and those teams will battle. And yeah, we like winning, and we want to kick their ass every time we play them. But I don't even assess it. I don't assess it. I don't look at it as pluses and minuses. I just look at it as, yeah, that was the game today. We won or we lost, move forward. And I try to just keep that perspective, because if you get divided attention and you start concentrating on things that, really, quite frankly, keep you from staying focused, then you're not doing any good for your ball club.
I know your relationship with Craig Counsell's not going to change. I get that. Certainly, this is a little bit of a personal question, as my wife is from Milwaukee, Glendale, actually, and right by where Counsell's from in Whitefish Bay, and he certainly was always a hero there. So I thought I'd ask you what your perspective on it is. This is a New York show, but we all look at Wisconsinites and Midwesterners as very nice people. You think he'll ever going to forgive him? It seems like they're kind of upset about the fact that he went to the Cubs, which is the main rival.
I think that people respect Counts. I think that's the thing to do: come to the stadium and boo him and be part of that whole thing. I think it's a fun thing. I think Wisconsin needs that. I think that's cool. You know what I mean? I think everybody needs a little New York in it. You know what I mean? So I used to say that living in Arizona, I'd be like, God, these people don't realize, in New York, we walk by each other. Nobody says hello. Nobody's pleasant. If you bump into somebody, you yell at them, like, hey, watch where you're going. In Arizona, you bump into somebody, you're apologetic and whatever else. So it's like, I always even say that Arizona needed a little New York. And I think you can say that to a lot of places. I think it's healthy. Not condoning everything that goes on in New York and not discrediting Milwaukee in any way. But at the same time, I think it's kind of a fun thing. I don't think Counts takes it too serious. I mean, he gets it. He knows what he's done. He's focused on getting the Cubs as good as he can get them.
And I just want to say you are a New Yorker, right? You are originally from
Syracuse,
New York, so
right? Yeah,
Syracuse, yep, upstate. I don't even get counted as a New Yorker because I'm from upstate. So
we'll count it.
Murph, we just as the inner city New Yorker here, we do say sorry when we bump into people, but we're carrying a weapon just in case it goes wrong anyway. Murph, one of the reasons that things have gone so well there is a core of young players who have played extremely well for you. Terang really stands out. Contreras behind the plate. But I think the one that really has a little national resonance is Jackson Chourio. Him and Jackson Merrill were kind of 1-2, 2-1, however you looked at it, as the top prospects coming into this season. Both of them got off not great. You guys stuck with Chourio, and just last 66 games, 317 with an 884 OPS, 10 homers, 11 stolen bases, and 14th in the majors in WAR, which means he's a really outstanding all-around player. Can you speak to his growth and his importance?
Yeah, I credit our staff and I credit the kid. I mean, he's from the right background. He's a great kid. He's genuine. He's real. He's a worker, and he loves baseball. And he loves baseball more than he loves all the outside stuff, which I'm really impressed with. He struggled, but he was open to whatever. He kept after it. He showed great competitiveness, and then things started to click a little bit. Now there's going to be another stage where he has to continue. As of late, been good, but there's been some ups and downs. His defense has improved remarkably. It's first time he's been in this intense of a situation. So I think he's been great. I really do. I think he's been fantastic. I think it couldn't have worked out any better. And we had to maintain ourselves while he was getting used to the big leagues. But he's going to be a force for years to come. You mentioned Turang, you mentioned Contreras, Joey Ortiz has been a godsend at third base. I mean, we've got some Blake Perkins, we've Sal Frelick. These guys are just young kids. They're young. They're in their 20s. Some of them, just out of college. And you mentioned Jackson Merrill, who I have an association with because my son plays in that organization and played on his team 2 years ago in Lake Elsinore, and called me one night. My son, is the son of a coach, obviously, and grew up in the locker room and with the minor leagues with me, the big leagues, whatever. He said, "Dad, we got a guy on our team. He's 18 years old. You're not going to believe it. He's the leader of our team, and he's only 18. He's the leader of our team." He said, "It's incredible. He commands the room. He just goes out and competes." His dad, he could have played for you. I promise you, this is what, right in front of my eyes. He was so excited to tell me about this kid named Jackson Merrill. And I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see.
Yeah,
you're only an A-ball kid.
Hey, he's a good scout. It looks like Jackson Merrill probably going to win the Rookie of the Year, although Skeens has got something to say about that. But back to Chourio, I happened to be in Maryville one day, and I think it was the day you told him he was making the team. But you're a very honest guy, which we would appreciate. And he made actually before the game, you met with everybody, which is what we also appreciate. And you mentioned that his defense needed a little work. Then he made 2 errors in the game. What have you done, or what has the team done, or the instructors done to get his defense in order? I mean, and you mentioned you guys in their 20s. He's just 20. He's actually only 20 years old.
Right. Yeah, I think the credit goes to the kid first and foremost. He went out there and worked at it. The staff made sure that he was going to do the work. He wasn't happy about it. In terms of we were tough on him, and we're letting him know you cannot play in the big leagues unless you get out there and work. Well, it's not easy to be 19 and all that coming at you. And I say it's not easy. Like, to think that, wow, I'm not good enough. He's never felt that in his life. So there's been a process of him. Even the first month in the big leagues, he wasn't good defensively. He was cautious. He played like a little bit laid back, and things have changed. Things have changed since then. So it's a credit to the game. The game forces you to change, and the kid had enough fortitude and competitiveness, and is from the right stock that he took on that challenge and kept getting better. He's got a long way to go. He's got a long way to go.
Pat, we've mentioned so many of these young names. It suggests that you're putting down a good cornerstone, not just for this year, but for the near future, that you have so many good young players performing so early in their career. The one guy who seems key, who's in his walk year, is your shortstop, Willy Adames, who kind of nationally goes under the radar a little bit, but is such a consistent, excellent player year to year and has been right at the core of this good run by the Brewers. What do you think about him heading into free agency? And do you think there's a chance you guys keep him and he's part of this near future with your young players?
Right. I sure wish we could. I think he's going to price himself out of our market. I don't know for sure. I don't have a key to the safe or the combination. But any team would want this kid. Like, he's the right guy. He brings it. Joe, he comes every day. Don't even think about not writing his name in the lineup. He's an old school competitor, and he's willing to get better. He's willing to change. He's willing to do whatever a club asks him to do. I think there'll be a lot of takers, and I think and I don't know. I don't follow the dollars and cents. I just don't follow it. But the kid will be wealthy. I mean, he's just how he goes about it, his attitude, his response to failure. He's growing in the game. You look at his walks this year, like we don't have, now we lose Yelich, what I mean? We don't have this potent lineup necessarily, but, he still takes his walks because that's what the game calls for. So he's maturing in the game, Yeah, and there's a homer in there. There's a homer in there. That's always good.
Yeah, you mentioned Yelich. He was an all-star this year at an over 900 OPS, which this year is fantastic. And obviously we're following Judge here, who's got 1200, but 900 is still among the leaders. How big a loss was that for you? I mean, I know you
Huge.
have a lot of outfielders, but he's pretty good.
Nah. I mean, it's not about outfield. It's about who Christian Yelich is to this club, the offensive player he is, and how great a year he's having. Now think about it. Christian Yelich got hurt in 19 on his way to his second MVP and missed the last month and cost him the MVP, I believe. And this year was up for a batting title, and I think probably cost him the batting title. It's just disappointing. But the loss of him to the lineup, but also in the locker room, he will be around. He's still great. He's great with the guys. The guys respect the hell out of him. He's a quiet leader, but they really respect him, and he really cares about the Milwaukee Brewers. He's very active, and but to replace him on the field is just you can't. And it's amazing these kids have buttoned their chin strap even tighter to fight every night and stay competitive.
Pat, I wonder if I could follow up on that. You had back surgery, right?
Yeah.
And anytime you hear a back, you worry about it. If I could combine him and Brandon Woodruff, who you've decided to rehab this year after shoulder surgery, they seem important for the 2025 club. Are you hearing good things on both, that they will be part of a veteran part of next year's team?
Yeah. They both seem to be on track. Woody has his first bullpen coming up here. We want to low key it, but he has his first bullpen coming up, so it's kind of exciting, and to think about him back on. He's a pillar of this team, and all systems go with Yelich. It seems like he'll be ready to come in spring training, and pending that his rehab and everything else, no complications. But it looks to be everything went really well. So yeah, you should have them both back next year for the Brewers, and that's a nice core. But they're coming off injuries. When a pitcher comes off shoulder surgery, sometimes it isn't the first year that he regains his form. Nonetheless, his presence alone.
Yeah, Woody is quite a talent, and I should just follow up there. I was there when he hit the home run off of Kershaw in the playoffs. Could he possibly be a factor in the bullpen for you guys in the playoffs?
No.
Okay.
All right.
That's
just mentally, that doesn't work. The kid's coming back off a serious shoulder, and you don't put your own needs in front of the players. And I wouldn't let him. I just feel like, no, Woody, this is the schedule. Build yourself up. It's a lot different to get ready to compete than to rehab your shoulder. So if it was an ankle injury or something like that, that's different. And being a small market, it's hard to withstand all these shots. Whether it's Devin not playing, it's Traden Burns, it's Woody, it's Miley, under the radar secret gem of ours. He's so important to the team, and he's throwing his best baseball. I mean, he's thrown the baseball as good as he ever has in his last 2 years. And it's like, to lose those guys, and now lose Yelich, it's just, it's bullet after bullet. You're trying to survive, but it's a credit to what people can do that never dreamed. I mean, Joey Ortiz never dreamed that he'd be playing every day in the big leagues this year. He was destined to be Gunnar Henderson's backup. And to see these guys, Blake Perkins, to be an everyday player in the big leagues, to see some of and our bullpen, who's been DFA'd, all of them have been DFA'd by people, the Brian Hudsons and Jared Koenigs and these guys, like, it's just a great feeling to be around guys like that and just see them compete against anybody, anytime. And that's the fun part.
Pat, one of the ways your rotation has, you've used 17 starters, which I think is a franchise record. One of them is Frankie Montas, who probably had his worst start for you yesterday, but the overall numbers since he's come from Cincinnati it's almost down 2 runs in ERA. it was clear he had stuff still in Cincinnati, and he seems to have now gotten back to something better with you. Why and how important is he?
Well, Frankie's in a great spot mentally. He didn't throw the ball bad yesterday. He really didn't. He had one inning where there was a lot of things that went against him. You guys can do the research on that, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things where Frankie's in an environment he really loves right now because we're in a little different situation, and I think the pitching coaches have helped him kind of find his best self right now. But Frankie's in a good. He's just got a great attitude about it. Sometimes that helps, and he also has had guys play tremendous defense behind him, and so he likes all that. He's got some buddies over here, and he's an easy guy to get along with. So yeah, we're happy to have him.
It's amazing what you've done with that pitching staff. Anybody who's listening, watching, should go take a look at the Brewer starters and see what they've done this year. Incredible that you're so far in front with all the different injuries and obviously not a lot of established stars other than Peralta in that rotation. And many of us have long suspected you'd be a great major league manager, and you obviously had a cup of coffee, shall we say, with the Padres. Didn't work out for whatever reason. But I think a lot of people watching and listening probably do recall that you were a major candidate with the Mets. So I'm going to go off the board and ask you about that a little bit. You are a New Yorker. I had the feeling that at that time that Brody wanted to hire you, but it's all, I don't know what the word is, but they all get together and picked Carlos Beltran at that point. Didn't work out. They quickly moved on. When they moved on, they had to go with a guy who was here, Luis Rojas. So I think he's going to be a good major league manager. Do you know what happened there? Because I thought you were getting close to possibly getting that job, and
it was a great experience. It was a great experience, John. It really was great experience meeting all the people I did. Brody seemed like a wonderful guy. I remember some of their assistants there seemed wonderful. I value it. They flew me out there twice, interviewed me once on the phone. I got to meet some great people and got to learn the process, and that's what I'm thankful for. Carlos Beltran, I'd hire him too. Rojas is one of my good friends. I think he's going to be a great manager. I would have hired him before me too. So I feel like, it was all good. The Padres situation, I wasn't ready for it. It was an eclectic bunch, and we were in last place when I took over, but it was, and we finished a little better than that, but it's still, I wasn't ready for the major leagues at that point. I think I could lead people, but I didn't really know the team, and I didn't do great things. I don't blame them for not rehiring me. I wish they would have, and I think life would be different, but maybe not better. I've learned a lot of lessons. We're all under construction. I'm a long way from being good at my job, but it's not because I'm not trying to be. And when you're under construction, you just try to make the plans good and try to follow through. So that's all we can do.
Murphy, you're good at being self-effacing, but you do have a team in first place. I'm sure you're doing some things right over there. And as I try to dig into it, it feels like your team is good at, I obviously don't watch 9 innings a day like I do with the Mets and Yankees, like little things, like really respecting 90 feet at a time. And when I looked at it, you're third in the majors in steals. It's a good way to get 90 feet. You're third in the majors in defensive runs saved. It's a good way to prevent 90 feet. And you're third in the league in bullpen ERA. It's a good way to close out when you're protecting it. Right. It feels like your team is good at what we don't kind of like glamorize or notarize over the course of the season. And you just keep doing that an inch at a time. And suddenly you're 75 and 55. Do I have your club right? Is this who you are?
That's exactly who we are. I mean, if you can't base run, and defend. We're a small market. We cut the budget this year. We didn't add to the budget. We cut it to the tune of $30 million or something like that. And that's part of that. That's not being cheap. That's just part of the economics of it. We're in the smallest market in America in Major League Baseball. So you work with what you got, but there's no question you can base run and defend. And you put players on the field that can base run and defend, and then you try to mix and match every way you can to get outs and be aggressive and have a style of play that other people don't like playing against, and let the opponents feel you a little bit. Now, as of late, I don't think we've done that. I don't think we've been great. I really don't. But again, I believe in the guys, and they'll respond. But I think they understand, and I think they find real solace in, like, this is how we play, guys. This is how we play. We win pitches. We drive the pitch count up. We're the threat to steal every time on base. Every guy can steal. Hell, Rhys Hoskins has got 3 steals. Okay, we got guys delivering, popcorn in the stands that can outrun. So it's like, yeah, he'll get on me for that, but hopefully he won't listen to this podcast. Like, when you have the right people and they're committed to doing the right things, you give yourself a shot. Now, we're a long way from doing anything we want to do, but we're not gonna put limits on ourselves, and we're not gonna act like we're something we're not. But the guys, to this point, how many games that is, 130, whatever that is, at this point, they've represented very, very well.
Well, you've represented very, very well also, Pat. You downplay it, but I have a feeling at the big banquet in New York, where you'll have to be careful if someone bumps into you in January, I think you're going to end up as the National League Manager of the Year. So don't want to do early congratulations. We have a long way to go, but we will say thank you very much for joining us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Respect you guys.
John and I, of course, thank Pat Murphy for joining us on the show. Hit or error, John?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a hit or an error. I guess it's more a hit. It's kind of a quirk. Danny Jansen, today, as we do this on a Monday, became the first Major League player to play for both teams in the same game. Incredible. The game was suspended. He started out with the Blue Jays, got traded to the Red Sox. Alex Cora inserted him in the game. I think he's got a sense of humor, or maybe he wanted him to play. I don't know, but it was an interesting thing to see. He'll be on both sides of the box score. Never seen that before.
Yeah, fascinating. It might not be an error, and you can't spell historic without H-I-N-T. So I think it's more historic and a hit, right?
All right, nice. I like it.
I'll go with a hit also. On May 15th, Mark Vientos became the Mets' regular third baseman. And I don't know, they went with Brett Beatty first, who was just probably lost for the rest of the season with a hand injury. Since May 15th, he's got 20 homers. It's tied with Francisco Lindor for the 15th most in the major leagues in that time. He's got an 876 OPS. That's also 15th. It's right behind Harper and Lindor. He has hit at an incredibly high level. The Mets were 19th in offense in runs scored before he began playing. And there's other reasons. Lindor going to first, JD Martinez heating up. But since he went into the lineup, they're 5th in the majors in runs scored. To have a special season, John, sometimes you have to get gifts you don't see coming. And that one, they've had a couple.
Right.
Iglesias, Torrens, the health of Severino and Minaya, besides their excellence when they generally pitch. And one of the things we didn't see coming is Vientos being this level of hitter this quickly.
Yeah, I'm not sure they saw it coming either. The previous regime tried to trade him a couple of times, and he wasn't that highly thought of as a prospect because people weren't sure he had a position. That's another thing to say about him too. He's been fine at third base. Is he Nolan Arenado, Pete Nolan Arenado, or Adrian Beltre? No, but he's been okay. So they haven't said he's the third baseman of the future. I don't know whether they're leaving that possibility that he could switch over to first if they don't sign Pete. That's another issue we probably won't get into this week. But, he's certainly a player for them going forward, whether it's at third or first or DH or whatever. But I kind of think he's the third baseman. They haven't said it, but why wouldn't he be the third baseman? It's not easy to find a third baseman, is it?
No, very difficult. 2 good ones, Chapman and Bregman, are in the free agent market this offseason. If they were, again, it's for a show for a different day in case they lose Alonso and they want to go in that direction. I'm sure in that show in a different day, we'll be helped as always, like we were today, by Tommy Hogan and Jake Brown, our producers. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a listen, give us a review and a rating. The New York Post YouTube page, the New York Post Sports YouTube page, give us a view. And John, think the next time we do this will be September. We'll be in the last month of the season. It'll be the stretch run. I hope everyone sticks with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.